A wise master does not reveal all his secrets at once.
Today I have some very juicy news and new information about Stellaris First Contact. We're going to be doing a deep dive into the new Origin Broken Shackles and finding out all about the new primitive pre-FTL buildings that are on offer with that, what we're going to be getting in terms of story and thematics around this pre-FTL Origin, as well as, if you bear with me, all of the, and I think it is all, of the new operations you'll be able to do against pre-FTL empires, and finally, a quick look at one of the new tooltips for a science ship that shows some interesting things around cloaking and reconnaissance. All of this has been made possible thanks to the lovely developers at Stellaris, who very recently did a live stream. I've gone through that and I've passed all of the new information so you don't have to, and collected it in this video. So without any further ado, let's dive in. Let's quickly recap what we know so far. So, the Broken Shackles Origin is one of the 3 new origins coming with Stellaris First Contact. It's also one of 2 origins that both focus on starting as a pre-FTL civilization in a lot of regards. In this case, you will start off as a multi-species empire on a single planet where your entire civilization is based on a crashed slaver ship that used to house a whole host of different pre-FTL species that all ended up crashing together here. So to represent this crashed starship landing, our home planet starts in a very unique position. We have 6 districts that are definitely not city districts, no other districts, so there's no mining districts, no energy districts, no food districts, absolutely nothing, and then a whole bunch of buildings that are entirely new icons. Don't worry though, that is the first thing we're going to dive into because they have revealed what all of these different buildings and districts will be doing. All of these buildings are in essence pre-FTL equivalents of more complicated buildings. For example, we don't get the ship shelter, we don't even get a planetary capital here. Our capital is the command center. It grants us a small amount of housing and amenities, 1 building slot, 2 colonist jobs, which basically mean we're starting with a downgraded colony as a capital. Yes, you can see why this is a bit of a challenging origin, and 1 militia job. I'm not sure if it's militia or military conscript because below it does label it as military conscript. Either way, I'm definitely here for the thematics we've got so far. This is going to give us basically downgraded versions of what you'd normally expect a capital building to give us. Then we have the makeshift farm. Instead of providing farmer jobs, they provide homesteader jobs, and not just 1 or 2, but 10 of the darn things. Homesteaders, I believe, produce less food than a regular farmer. However, basically, the point of all of this is that you are, in essence, a pre-FTL civilization, at least in the way you structure your society, and thus you're quite agrarian-based. You don't have the technological base yet to shift away from those accursed farmer jobs. The scrap refinery is kind of interesting. It doubles up as a single mining district and additionally a single industrial district. It produces a meager amount of minerals, but also gives us 2 labourer jobs, and they produce a small amount of consumer goods and alloys. All of this thematically is you are in essence scrapping the slave ship that's crashed on the planet and trying to get as many resources or working Jeff pads out of the darn thing as you can. The administrative hub is entirely reclaimed from state cabins, luxurious MSI cabins, and living quarters of your former masters, repurposed now into offices. It provides administrators. Don't be fooled, the icon looks like it's politicians. It's not. This is administrators, which is the old job that politicians used to be. Okay, granted a bit confusing, but these will be turning consumer goods into Unity. The important thing to note here with all of these jobs is they are vastly inferior versions of the regular jobs you would normally start the game with. This is definitely a challenging origin economically. The power plant gives you 2 terrible technicians, only producing approximately 8 energy between them. Yikes, that is really quite bad. Then again, I suppose what do you expect when you've jury-rigged an assemblage of solar cells linked to the old fusion reactor on the crashed spaceship? And finally, we will of course need some researchers. We don't get researchers though because we are a pre-FTL civilization. We get scientists. Oh boy, are they terrible. Each one will be consuming one consumer good and giving you one of each research point. It's actually better if you can go on utopian abundance living standards probably, and then unemploy the pops working here. Yikes. And then we get to the new city districts. So, they aren't city districts, oh no. Instead, these are scavenger sites. They do provide you with some housing, they are in essence your equivalent version of a city district, but they also provide you with a scavenger job and a really reduced number of building slots, only plus 0.75 per scavenger site. Those scavenger jobs will be producing a small amount of alloys, just the one, a tiny amount of research points. It seems like it is 0, but I believe that just means it's slightly more than 0 and rounds down to 0. And finally, a tiny amount of amenities, so that you might have some amenities issues on your colony right at the start. And if you're enjoying this video, please build a new home for that like button. All of this combines together to give us one of the absolute worst economies for any origin at the start of the game. Your Unity is dismal, your research is very low, you're not producing hardly any advanced resources, and your basic resource income leaves a lot to be desired. This is probably the pre-FTL origin that we all wanted in terms of thematics, in terms of feeling. Not only that, but you start the game with absolutely no ships. Yes, you have managed to build a starbase which does have a shipyard, excellent, but you have no science ships, you have no construction ships, and you have absolutely no military ships. Not only do you have no military ships actually, you have no technology yet to even build military ships. As you can see here, we're actually lacking some of the basic technologies that most empires take for granted when they start the game. You will have to research such basic things as the scientific method in order to get research labs, planetary government in order to get planetary administration, precinct houses and administrative offices, and corvettes to simply be able to build a military ship. Then what will happen is that as you unlock these starting technologies, as you research things like the planetary government, events will trigger that allow you to convert those limited pre-FTL style buildings on your capital over into the equivalent building at basically no cost. For example, the administrative hub on your capital here will be upgraded to the administrative offices, which then gives you the more powerful bureaucrat job. The crashed ship itself, the main hub of your civilization, gives you an archaeology site that you'll be able to explore and go through. As you progress through the archaeology site chain, you'll be able to clear these planetary features. You get 5 ship debris tile blockers, and as you progress through, as I said, that archaeology chain, each level will clear one of these blockers, increasing the maximum number of districts you can have on your capital. The archaeology site also gives you things like a bit of research, but not really much else besides that. It isn't all doom and gloom though. There are also a whole series of events that will be triggering and firing as you explore out into the universe, mainly pertaining to your new nascent society and really how that society gels together, because you have a diverse range of pops with a diverse range of ethics on your empire. For that reason, straight away at the start of the game, the Unshackled Politics event will fire, giving you a massive 50% faction unity gain for the first 10 years, and also causing the political factions in your empire to spawn right away at the game start, as if you'd taken parliamentary system. This is actually really good, both from a unity income perspective, but also if you can appease those factions from a happiness perspective and thus stability perspective on your planet. So you basically get the benefit of parliamentary system, or at least the early benefits, without having to even take that civic. There are more events and more events that fire as you go through. Here we have Report Political Discourse on Freedom's Landing, where you can choose to go down a less democratic route. That's going to reduce your unity from jobs. It's also going to reduce your ethics shift chance because we'll lose the political frontier modifier, something you've not actually seen, but it gives you a 50% boost to ethics shift. But we will gain a lovely plus 10 stability and a host of society research. That is probably worth it overall, yeah. Exploration is also a key theme of this origin. As you go out there into the universe, you'll be able to find the homeworlds, the pre-FTL homeworlds of the species on your capital planet, all of these species you started with. And when you find a homeworld, it will grant you some nice bonuses. As you can see here, we're going to get plus 10% happiness and 5% unity for 5 years, simply for finding that homeworld. Not only that, we get a lovely pre-FTL planet that will then be ours to do with as we please. When we finally finish the crashed slaver ship archaeology site on our capital, we also get some nice bonuses as well. We get 10% happiness and monthly unity for 10 years. We also get the Locate Homeworld special project, which I believe allows you to pinpoint where some of those homeworlds are out there in the galaxy, making it much easier for you to beeline towards them. And additionally, I think it gives you some way of finding, or at least hinting, at where Minimar's Specialized Industries is. They are your arch rival, your nemesis, and technically from a legal perspective, the people that still own you. And then at around year 15, you get the Into the Future event triggering. Now, I believe this isn't specifically tied to the year, but in fact tied to when you actually research all of those basic technologies that you start the game missing. However, it's not entirely clear in the information that we've seen so far why exactly this event has been triggered, so I don't know the exact reason for now. But what does it do? Well, it unlocks the Memorial to the Unshackled decision, which will enable you to convert the crashed slaver ship into a Memorial to the Unshackled, giving you +2 culture worker jobs on your capital, not from any building, but from a planetary feature. You'll also upgrade all of those primitive buildings that have not been upgraded so far, like the power plant and the scrap refinery. And additionally, scavenger sites will now provide clerks, and I think they lose the scavenger job. So basically they kind of become city districts. You also get a bunch of engineering research, some minerals, some consumer goods, and some alloys. I suspect all of these bonus resources are based on your income, so it may be very, very possible to abuse this. For example, maybe you might be able to cause your alloy income to spike for a couple of months, and then you'll be able to get thousands and thousands of alloys from this event, unless they put a cap on it, which they might also have done. Overall, this definitely seems to be a challenging origin, and I'm totally here for it. It is kind of nice, I think, to get some origins that are very much geared towards single-player games rather than necessarily multiplayer. Now, absolutely, you could play this with multiplayer, have one of your friends play the Payback origin, you play Broken Shackles, and together you take down Minimar's Specialized Industries, but I don't think this origin is going to become a favorite amongst PvP players, specifically because it spawns in an AI empire as well, which generally most player versus player lobbies do take some issue to. Now, I also think it looks like it's going to be a very fun, very thematic origin with, yes, quite a few early hurdles, but there are also bonuses as well. You'll be able to colonize any world out there because you'll have such a plethora of different pops with different climate preferences that you will have no issues colonizing any planet you find. So in some ways, you're kind of able to play a bit like a machine empire. And then on top of that, there are lots of buffs and bonuses coming through as we get certain events firing, as we unlock certain things that may, in the end, make up somewhat for that negative start. There is also something we haven't seen, and that is we get a modifier on our capital right from the start of the game, which I do not know what it does. I believe it's probably similar to the Prosperous Unification, giving us some happiness, probably some resources from jobs, that kind of thing. It does go away by quite quickly on. I don't know exactly when, but there is an event later on that does remove that modifier, the Free at Last modifier. Later on, we will be seeing what it does, but for now, we will only be able to speculate. If that wasn't enough, we've also been given a sneak peek into all of the new operations you'll be able to commit or utilize against pre-FTL civilizations. Starting off at the top, we have increased awareness. This basically, it does what it says. It increases the awareness of the civilization on the planet below. Remember, when they get to 100, they are fully aware and shenanigans will abound. Below that, we have something really, I think, quite crucial to the whole experience of Stellaris First Contact, and that is spread disinformation. So not only will you be able to increase awareness, but you'll also be able to decrease it as well. By successfully completing this operation, you will lower the awareness level of the pre-FTL civilization that you are spying upon. Also interesting to note that once you get the gene tailoring technology, you'll be able to manipulate the flesh of any spies or any agents you send onto this pre-FTL world, and that will make it less difficult for your agent to complete their operations. Before that time though, they're going to look rather darn foreign. Third in the list, we have plant advanced knowledge. This is very similar to technological enlightenment, however, you're doing it surreptitiously and under the radar. As well as that, I believe because this can be done again and again, it is a repeatable espionage operation. This means you will be able to advance a civilization to a specific technology level and then leave them there, so you don't have to fully enlighten another civilization. Which of course would make it a fully fledged post-FTL empire and let them own the star system and all of those horrible things that you may not want. Indoctrinate society is a tie-over from the previous indoctrination action you could take on primitives. This does the same as it used to and shifts the population's ethics towards yours. Now it shifts the pop ethics. I don't know if it actually changes the ethics of the overall civilization. That is not something I have seen happen. There might be an event that needs to be fired when that actually happens, when we get a sufficient number of pops with a new ethic to change the overall ethics of the pre-FTL nation. It's also important to note here as well, these operations are actually quite expensive. They're going to be costing, if you want to do a lot of this, quite a lot of influence. Meaning if you're going to dilly-dally around with pre-FTL civilizations, you will not be able to make claims, you'll not be able to expand at the rate of other empires that have, simply invaded the planet. Last but by absolutely no means least, we have everybody's favourite infiltrate government. Now, you will not need to have the gene tailoring technology in order to pull this off. Yes, it will make it harder and harder to complete this if you don't have gene tailoring, but unlike the past where you must have gene tailoring to pull off a successful infiltration, that's simply not required. You just need to be able to complete the darn operation. When you do this, you will fully annex the planet, and you'll also give the locals a very large but very temporary happiness boost. This may mean that it's actually best because they may not get stellar culture shock here. I'm not reading anything about stellar culture shock whatsoever. It may be best from now on, instead of actually invading the planet, to wait 5 or 6 years while you go through the motions, set up a network, and then infiltrate the government. You'll have a more productive population much sooner. I would also be remiss in my duties if I didn't mention the interesting new tooltips we get when we use our science ships post-patch 3.7. Here you can see we not only have research projects in the system, move here and assist research, all very normal things, but we also have assist cloaking detection, meaning that it looks like you'll be able to use your science ships to boost your cloaking scanner level so that even if your sensor technology is too low to detect your enemy's cloaked ships, you may be able to boost it in specific systems to increase that level and thus detect the evil cloakers. And then there's also active reconnaissance. Now, I don't know what active recon actually does. I've got no idea. If you know or have any idea, please let me know down in the comments below. It cannot be, because my original thought was that it had something to do with assisting cloaking detection, but it cannot be that because we have that as an option. Active recon, what could it be? if you want to know more about the Independence Day or XCOM inspired Origin Payback, which asks the question, what happens if a pre-FTL civilization actually manages to throw off the yoke of an invading empire, then click the video on screen now.